All right, everybody. This is Ross, the Fig Boss. I believe we are now live. And for those of you guys who have never been a part of one of my live streams before, it's something I like to do every once in a while. Honestly, they're one of my favorite things to do. So I try to do them as often as I can, but we don't always have time. They're usually in the 2-hour range. And then at the end, for those of you guys who are here with me, at some point here when we're done talking, you guys can put your questions down in the chat. So for anyone here now joining us and you have questions or throughout this talk, put them in the chat. I'll go back at the end of the talk and we will do sort of like a Q&A section. So yeah, hey, AMZ, how you doing, bud? So let's start off because in today's video, we have a lot of topics I want to cover first. I actually wrote some stuff down this time. Most of the time, I have to kind of remember what we're talking about, but there's definitely a lot of things that I've learned this year, as we do every year. We learn some new stuff, especially regarding the figs, just growing, fruit trees in general. But this year, as we tend to every year think, oh, well, I don't really think I have anything left to learn. I mean, I always think I have something left to learn, but I do feel closer and closer to the end, right? The journey of growing figs must end at some point. Well, at least learning about them, you can imagine, like, what is there really left to learn? But every single year we learn something new. And in my opinion, that's the beauty of growing figs and really the beauty of growing anything, because nature changes every year. The conditions are different. And because of that, you make different observations. So this year we made a couple new observations. I want to talk about that. Some of like the questions that have been burning, I think, in fig growers' minds for a while. I think I have the answer, or at least a theory as to why the answer is, or why it's happening. We also want to talk about certain varieties. There's some impressive varieties this year that have definitely impressed me, and then there's some old favorites that really came into their own this year for some reason, which actually, because of that observation of really noticing how the improvement has been made in those varieties, we made an interesting observation actually about suckers and the fruit quality from the figs that form on suckers. We're also going to talk about maybe even ranking some figs in two different categories. We're going to talk about flavor profiles. We're going to talk about just having too many figs. We're going to talk about, let's see here, the fig tasting that we did. So this is really, I think, where I want to start. And my friend Bill, actually, when I mentioned this particular tasting that I did with him in text and over the phone, he's like, well, Ross, did you get it on video? I can't wait to watch the video. And I said, well, no, because I didn't really want to go through that. I mean, this was a very local thing with a bunch of friends that are very close by. It was very last minute. And also, some of them don't really want to be filmed. I don't want to be filming these people who, are not myself. Like, it feels weird being in public filming. It feels weird not filming somebody who's somewhat of like a public figure. It seems weird filming your kids, as an example. Like, that to me is just so strange. It's even weird for me to be on camera sometimes. Like, it's not my personality. But so we didn't do that. But I did write up a blog post here, which you guys can go to very easily here. I'll put it in the chat for everybody. Thanks for joining me, by the way. We've got someone here from Cape Town, South Africa. That's awesome. Holy crap. I know you guys, some of you are all over the place. And it's great that a lot of you guys follow along with my channel. Somebody, I think, in Singapore put out a comment today asking for cuttings of Black Madeira. So anyway, so back to the blog post here and the tasting that we did. A number of the people, I would say probably half of the people, there was 6 of us in total, half of the people really had no experience with figs almost whatsoever. Even just eating fresh figs, like very little experience. And then 3 of us, including myself, had a lot of experience eating and tasting and growing figs. So it was a kind of a nice mixed bag of people. And believe it or not, in this tasting that we did, there were 6 different figs named as their favorite. We did make one mistake, I think, and we should have. A lot of the people at the tasting were saying they should have been taking notes as they were going along. But the quality at this tasting, guys, was absolutely absurd. And a lot of that, we're going to talk about the reasons why. The figs were just insane this year. I can't really recall a time other than maybe 2019. There's some photos. I probably could go back into my Google Photos here and look back. Maybe some of you guys have been around for that long watching the channel, but I think in 2019 we had so much dry weather in a decent period of time, and the figs ripened so well on the tree that I had so many varieties that dried up. And we had, like, I think that year, like LSU Tiger and Neurocello de Elba, Sucrete. I don't remember all the varieties, but there was a nice, like a giant photo I took of every fig, and it was just like, it was like mind blowing, because the figs at that point really were on the level of like the quality of what you would find in California. And this tasting, the figs here, I spoiled the crap out of people. My friend Chris from Staten Island, shout out to Chris. He came to my place one other time a couple years ago, and he told me, he's like, Ross, you spoiled the crap out of me that time, which I probably did, because we had so many Col de Dames that day that were really well ripened. And then, of course, this tasting that we did, I think, was even like a higher level than that. And Chris was just like walking away almost kind of in like disbelief at how good some of these fruits were. The problem is with the figs is that you can't always get this quality here. I mean, look at how insane that Azores Dark looks, you know? So one of the things that I did in preparation for this tasting, and what I do all the time now, after the last couple years, it's really critical that if you want to have good quality figs, even if you can't pick them at the most optimal ripeness level, like this brocolette up here certainly wasn't picked at the perfect time. I tried to pick all these figs at the best time possible. This is a plate here from my friend Romeo, who brought over some fruits. Like these figs here, like the Moscatel Bronco, the De Ponte, I wanted to include them in the tasting, but they really weren't at their peak ripeness, and it's hard to get figs like this at their peak ripeness. So what you would do, believe it or not, and you can see it really obviously here with these Ronde de Bordeaux, is that if I pick a fig that's not as well ripened as I would like it to be, I will put it then in the fridge. So I put them on a plate like this, paper plate, glass, whatever it is, just something flat. You cut the figs up in half and put them skin side down. I've talked a lot about this in the past, but when you put them in the fridge like that, they very slowly dehydrate, and the flavors then increase because you're losing water. There's some evaporation that's happening. It's not as good as if you had picked them absolutely perfectly, like super shriveled on the tree, as some of these were. So you can, improve an underripe fig, cut it open in half, put it in the fridge, and then over the course of like a week to almost, I think about 3 weeks or so, you'll see a dramatic change in the actual quality of the fruit and the flavor. And they won't mold like that. That's a common question I get all the time when I tell people about this. The reason why they don't mold is if you have a drier plate down there where the skin side is, you got to make sure the figs are not leaking everywhere. Like if you had harvested your fruits on a rainy day, they're soaking wet. You don't want to do this. You want to dry off all the figs, make sure the outsides are dry, put them on the plate. The plate is dry. And then also you need to have the right bricks going into this. If you don't have a high enough bricks in your figs, they'll spoil pretty quickly in the fridge, which just comes down to watering your figs at the right level. If you overwater your figs like a crazy person and you just want them to grow and grow and grow, and you're like, oh, my fig tree's huge, the quality of your fruits are going to be lower. The bricks is going to be higher, and you're not going to be able to really do something like this. So for me, that's like a huge little secret that I don't think people really know. And you can see the Ronde Bordeaux up here. These are the ones that have actually been sitting in the fridge like that for about 4 or 5 days. By the way, it's even compounded a little bit further because not only were these sitting in the fridge for like 4 or 5 days, but most of them that were in the fridge were already picked at like peak ripeness. So I took like a perfectly ripe fig and just kind of preserved it for a bit and maybe even made it a little bit more intense so that when we did this tasting 4 or 5 days later and I picked all my fruits, I had just an incredible spread. Some of the varieties here, again, were picked a little bit early, but I'm telling you, like, look at these little rubies down here. They're basically raisins at that point. These Norellas, they came out great. Most of those actually were in the fridge for most of the time. We had some insane Azores darks. I feel like, oddly enough, we're missing a photo. This is a great shot right here. If I can find the LSU Tiger plate. This was a really special. This was also a nicely ripened plate here of some new ones here. Rissoulette, Stallion, Texas BA1, Pecchiolo, Bosco Rosso. These were all pretty much new varieties to me at that point. Where is that photo of the LSU Tiger? So we're going to go through most of the photos here. I put a lot of my photos of this season so far in this particular here it is right here. I put a lot of my photos in this particular album because I want to go over this with you guys. But you can see, like, look how good some of these Campaneris are. Even Teramo looks insanely good. LSU Tiger, these are all like dried up on the tree. Sicilian Dark, they are insanely dark. So like I said, the quality was nuts. We had a lot of dry weather. We've had a drought this year. Been really careful about overwatering my figs. I have been watering them like twice a day. But even twice a day, if it's 90 degrees, that's about how often I water them. If it's a little bit less, if it's like in the higher 80s, I'll probably still stick with the twice a day. But anywhere in the the lower 80s or below, I won't water them twice a day. I actually just recently dialed it back to once a day, and that's really the secret to this. That's all it is. And in fact, because we did this tasting with a number of different varieties and figs that are from in-ground trees, figs that are from potted trees, and figs that are not only planted in the ground, but of different locations in my yard. So the interesting thing about this plate here, which I've talked to you guys at length, is that the soil moisture is a huge factor when you're talking about the flavor of these figs. And this is how you can get here in this climate, any of you guys outside of a really dry place, if you get over 25 inches of rain annually, and a good amount of that is in your summer or when these figs ripen, this is a really good piece of advice. It's just really controlling the soil moisture. And it's pretty much proven to me at this point. I don't know why people even argue this. I can't believe someone would argue this. It's kind of the term of dry farming is what it's called. And when you have a drier soil, essentially the water is not sucked up so much and stored in the branches, stored in the leaves, and then also stored in the fruits. You don't want any water in excess, just enough to kind of keep the plants happy. And dialing that in is like a really attentive skill. But once we have accomplished that with these trees in particular, the Sicilian Dark, the Campanile, the Teramo, even Florea we'll talk about in a little bit at some point in this video. These are all trees that I have planted in the front of the house. So actually right over here out this window behind me is the north side of the property. And I have a fig plot out there that used to be where a big shade tree was. And the tree actually got hit by lightning twice, believe it or not. So we ended up taking it out. It seemed very unlucky, that tree. Something was up with that spot. And then once we took it out, I had the idea of planting something there. And I realized over time, really, it didn't occur to me right away that the soil was very different there than it is everywhere else in my yard. And that Everywhere else in the yard is super heavy clay, holds a ton of water, doesn't really need a lot of nutrients. It's also quite acidic. It's like an acidic clay, and I think this is partly because of the developers that developed our house. This was all land at one point, and my parents came in and built this house from nothing, and I have a feeling because of that big shade tree that was there, they didn't want to develop or disturb the soil too much around that. Maybe that's it. Maybe there's another reason. I don't know, but the soil composition is very different. It's actually like a sandy loam of what you would expect, what you want. I have a friend who I just met. His name's Chip. He lives kind of down the road. He actually has some really old farmland that his family has owned since actually he got his land from William Penn, believe it or not. And he was telling me that his land is so rich with nutrients because it used to be the Delaware. The Delaware used to run through his land, and the Delaware over time has moved. And so he basically now has this super enriched land where the Delaware used to be. And that's the soil actually right out front here. That it kind of reminds me of that. I don't know if it's the same story. I doubt it because my property is much further away from the Delaware than his, but it's interesting nonetheless. And because of that, this different composition, I've had so much struggles over the years actually keeping that bed and the trees planted in there consistently moist throughout the summer. In fact, the soil typically dries out, and I really have had a hard time even establishing figs there. I finally wised up this year, realized this, and decided, especially with the drought that we had, even hand watering it, I probably hand watered that bed maybe 6 or so times this year, and I wised up and finally added mulch. And so we're getting a load of wood chips delivered. I'm going to mulch the crap out of that bed, which is totally, again, opposite of typically what I tell you guys to do. But we're going to mulch actually all the fig beds, and we can maybe get into that at some point. But after this year of drought, I think it makes sense for establishing the trees. Not necessarily for producing the highest quality fruits, but we can talk about that later. So the bed there with all those trees is just very dry, and you can tell that the quality of the figs is different there than anywhere else in the yard. It's different there than even growing them in containers. And so as an example, this Sicilian dark fig, which I've received from Big Bill in Lancaster, for those of you guys who know who Bill is, this is not his favorite hardy Chicago. This is what he has described as hardy and produces a lot. And so he described it to me as just his workhorse. It's not really his tastiest hardy Chicago. But guess what? This was a unanimous favorite. Everybody loved this fig. Hardy Chicago. Everybody loved it. And couldn't actually... I knew how good it was, but I knew how good it was just because of the soil out there. I've had this fig last year. I've had some Teramo last year. By the way, Teramo is not supposed to be a very tasty fig. Who has actually, thought of Teramo as like a very high quality, tasty fruit? Guess what? It was incredibly good here. Super layered flavor with, some nice caramel notes, good figginess, and it even had a really fruity berry flavor to it. The Sicilian Dark was extremely berry flavored, that was the main flavor in the fruit, was actually a berry. And people loved that at the tasting. The other thing that was just shocking to me was the Campanile, and this was actually my favorite of the tasting, and you can almost kind of see, these are really picked at the perfect moment. They are super dried. The pulp really started to thicken up and dry out a little bit, not just the outside of the fig, but the inside as well. And these had the most amazing earthiness of any fig I've ever eaten. I could literally taste the minerals in my soil. I could literally taste my soil as I'm eating these figs. And you just don't pick that up anywhere else. I've never really had that in any Campaniles I've had ever before. It's only really because of this drier soil. It was like drinking a really nice wine that has that minerality to it. So that was my particular favorite. Someone's favorite was Sicilian Dark that we talked about, and then it was my friend Jenny who really loved LSU Tiger. Which, guys, I'm just over the moon about this fig now. I used to have 3 of them in a container. I actually had about 4 of them, I think, at one point in a container. One of them I gave away to a friend. 2 of them I planted in the ground, and then one of them I had as Calderwood Unknown, and I sold that tree years ago as a bare-rooted tree. Somebody now at this point has it. I'm sure they're enjoying it. This fig doesn't get enough credit. I'm sorry. This is like one of the best figs, because it has the really interesting skin to it. And Dan Foster in Michigan, who is a huge fan of this fig as well because of the skin, this is like his favorite part about it. He says he really has this cherry or this chewy skin to it, which I thought he was crazy. I never had recognized that before. But all of them are like that. And it really comes down to, I think, this year, why I had not, really observed that in the past too much is because, one, we've had a little bit of a drier weather, a drier soil, but also because what we've learned this year, LSU Tiger's the one that's chewy there, Derek. But also because what we've learned is that the fruit that forms on the suckers, so I've tried my best to, in the past, we grow all of our figs so close together, as some of you guys know. I mean, you could just very easily go on YouTube, put in Ross Ratty, high density, and something's going to come up where you're going to see my planting, where I have these fig trees that are so close together. And our original thought was, well, you know what? Let me plant these things really close together because I want to see just how close I can plant figs. That was the main objective. Then I thought, well, maybe if I plant them really close, I might be able to outproduce a large tree, right? A large tree is going to produce an X amount of figs. And then if I have maybe a larger number of fig trees in that same given area, which one will outproduce the other? And it evolved even further that we learned that, okay, well, we're going to cut them all back to 6 to 12 inches. We'll allow the suckers to come up. It'll resprout from the base every year. And then on those suckers will form fruit. And after doing that for a number of years, we struggled because we learned that there's a hormonal imbalance. That was also something we learned this year at the beginning, is that these trees just go through this hormonal problem where if you are going to prune them so heavily, you're going to run into hormone issues. And they end up being water shoots from the base like that. And they just want to grow and grow and grow and not really fruit because they're out of that balance, right? We did that video, if you guys remember, about pinching for hormonal imbalance. And so we learned that, okay, probably the sucker, getting them and relying on the suckers is not really the best idea. It can work if you have a lot of light and you're really like finessing it and you're really skillful at growing figs, you could do it. But it's just more difficult. And then, of course, this year we learned that through our hardiness trials that we did, which, by the way, we have here on the blog. I mean, you could just very easily search here on the blog, hardy, and we talked about here in a video and on the blog about the varieties that survived this past winter. And one of the varieties actually was LSU Huye, which I've learned is an extremely hardy variety. We saw a 6-degree Fahrenheit low, and the suckers had survived, actually, because I pruned my tree and left one main stem on all of the trees that were unpruned. And I did really every single tree in the yard was not protected other than my Ronde Bordeaux. So like 100+ trees were unprotected with, just entirely exposed to the elements just to see what would happen. Also kind of pure laziness, and I was just busy at that time of the year. But the trees that ended up surviving, or at least one of them, LSU Huye, had not only that one main branch that was probably as tall as me, that I left unpruned from the prior year, Not only did that sort of survive, I mean, it did take some damage, but what was crazy to me was that these suckers down below, I put on a lot of air layers last year, and I left a lot of them on. I didn't remove them because I have a lot of suckers that come up every year. And two of the suckers that came up, at least, from LSU Huye, after pruning the main larger branches that were, 6, 7, 8 feet tall, took those out, sold those as cuttings. What was left behind was a number of really small suckers, and one of them was 1.5 feet, or both of them are 1.5 feet, and those survived the winter with no damage. And then after observing that they survived the winter with no damage, you would not believe how easy it was to get them to fruit, how many fruits they put out, and now I'm observing actually a higher fruit quality. So the point is about this LSU Tiger is that in the past, when I actually got it to fruit in the ground, the fruit was forming on suckers. It was not forming on growth that was there prior. And I do believe there is a difference in quality. Yes, we had a dry year. Yes, we have a drier soil this year. That has definitely played a part. In fact, we have less fruit because of the dry year, but the quality is higher. But at the same time, I do believe if you form fruit on suckers, they're just not going to be as good in general. I think maybe it depends on the variety, but I'm noticing across the board between a huge number of varieties that did survive the winter this year, a huge increase in quality in so many observable ways. Especially the size of the fruits, the skin quality of the fruits, the crack and split resistance of the fruits. It's almost like a number of these varieties, like Long de Doute is one of them, LSU Huye is one of them, LSU Tiger is one of them. A number of them they almost seem like they're totally different figs. Like what I've been observing the last couple years is just like not even the same variety. It's so unusual. And the only thing I can really think of is that one main difference. So that's definitely something that I would highly, highly recommend that, well, we've learned this now. It's worth sharing. I'm going to probably do its own little video, even a blog post on this. And then, of course, this upcoming season, we're already training actually suckers along the ground. I'm already in the process of bending them down so that when we cover them this year with mulch and tarps, all I have to do in the spring is plop them right back up with some stakes, and they're going to produce fruit like you wouldn't believe. And we did talk about early in the season about the different buds on the tree, how there's the apical buds, the lateral buds, the buds from lower down point on the tree, and then, of course, the suckers. And all four of those have different varying degrees of differences in hormones. So the hormones are going to dictate how easy it is to fruit, how difficult it is to fruit, how early the fruits form, the quality of the fruits, the quantity of the fruits. I mean, you name it. You can go on and on and on. It's amazing. So, yeah, I just think that's definitely something we got to pay attention to. I'm glad I did this. I'm glad I tried all this crap. I made every mistake in the book. I did things wrong on purpose to figure out and learn this stuff. And you can take my word for it or not. I don't care at this point. But, I'm happy to at least be sharing this information with people. So anyway, so that's one thing. The suckers, we crossed that off. And then so the tigers were amazing. The chewy skin we talked about. Also, they're basically dried. What I had viewed actually as LSU Tiger in the past, and I've described it many times like this. It's like a Celeste, but double the size. And I actually think it's quite different in flavor. Although it is rather figgy, it can get a little bit of a berry flavor. But the pulp is a little bit different in texture, and then also the skin is vastly different than any Celeste I've had. So it is like in its own, in my mind, it is in its own category. Although I do think of it, because it is a hybrid of Celeste, I do think of it as 2 times the size. But it's like, I'm telling you guys, this one now here, like I could add this to my if you guys go to my spreadsheets, the figs that really perform the best, LSU Tigers on that list. And we're going to really, I think, at the end of this season, really deep dive into this whole thing more and talk about actually a B tier. Because I just have some figs that I think have really taken actually a jump up that before were like, they're good, but they're not in this category here. But now I'm really starting to recognize some of the better qualities in some of these others that in the past I really didn't give that much credit to. So that was, let's see, what else did I want to talk about regarding the tasting? We covered LSU Tiger. We covered Sicilian Dark. My friend Riley, who is a farmer locally, this was his favorite Moro de Caneva. A lot of the Moro de Canevas this year have been insane. It's just an incredible fig. When you cut it open in half, actually, in the fridge, too, it really is one of the best for that whole process. They always produce super well. A lot of them came out super dried this year. And this actually right here is a Moro de Caneva. Doesn't that look insane? That was from one of the videos we did recently. And then if I scroll down here, look at that. I mean, they've just been nuts this year, these Moro de Caneva figs. So, yeah, it's such a variety that I wouldn't even have said is really the best tasting, but it ripens such at a higher quality that for me, you just have to grow it. It just pure and simply is one of the best figs here. So we covered that. Okay. And then the last one, we had Azores Dark, which I mentioned. By the way, we had all these hardy Chicagos to try. The Sicilian Darks, which honestly had a huge edge over any of the other hardy Chicagos because they were very ripe, but they were also from that drier soil. We had Norellas. This is a tree of mine that is from in a container. It performs super well. I love Norella. It's got a larger size. A lot of people really like Norella. I thought it might be a little similar to Azores Dark. It's not. That was my original intention, but it's definitely quite different. And then Romeo brought over things like Basilica Sica, St. Rita is down here. There was also this Black Greek from Marius. Why do I feel... Oh, here it is. There was also Kesariani, and then he has a Sultane, which is... not that Sultane is a hardy Chicago, but he has one that is a hardy Chicago type. And basically all of these were kind of not ripe enough to really compare. I've had Kesariani in the past. I've grown it myself. I've grown Black Greek in the past. I think I may have also grown Mavricica, if I'm not mistaken. But the point I'm trying to make here is that in my mind, Azores Dark it still is the best hardy Chicago type. There's just something about it. You eat it and you're gonna recognize the difference. It is a hardy Chicago. It's similar to the others. Ross is relentless with this crap. He's never gonna shut up about Azores Dark. I keep trying to find something better, guys, and it doesn't exist as far as I know. I'm even trying some others this year, like San Donato de Nania, Unknown Lion. I've added so many new ones. I probably have, like at this point, 10 different hardy Chicagos. I also really like Conde. The St. Rita was I was hoping for more out of this, but they are kind of a little underripe. I did enjoy the Mavricica actually quite a bit. That had a nice thicker pulp to it. But I mean, look at the Azores Darks. They're pretty insane. I had one super dried fig from Azores Dark, one super dried fig from a couple of dried figs actually from the Sicilian Dark, and then I also had one really dried fig from Norella somewhere in here. I think it's this one right here, and that would have been a really good side-by-side comparison. But every time I eat an Azores Dark, I'm just like, okay, I don't really need any more confirmation. There's just something like about it that is on some other level than the rest of them. I was recently talking to somebody, actually, I think it may have been my friend Chris, about the size of it. It's just a little bit smaller. Same thing with Sicilian Dark, and that they're smaller hardy Chicagos versus Norella. It's actually a pretty large size fig. It's about medium size. And I think because of that smaller size, it definitely tends to help them intensify their flavor, because what's happening here, and this is something that we really learned this year as well, so in terms of something new that we really observed, is because of this drought, because of this dry weather that we had this ability to recognize and observe that the water is actually evaporating out of the skin of the fruits. So when you have about a 50% humidity, I would say less than that, probably around 40, but definitely at 50 or above, you're not going to see this evaporation that you want to see in the fruits. You want to see them have less water as they're ripening. And if you have about 40% or less humidity, you're going to start to see that evaporation process happen in the fruits. And instead of actually having more water in the fruits, you'll have less. Above 50%, you won't really see that evaporation all that much. And then, of course, you if it rains, the water hits the skin of the fruit and absorbs into the fruit, and then you have more water than what you started with. So there's like this crazy thing. Someone had asked me, well, Ross, in theory, if you just grew your figs under plastic in a greenhouse, like, wouldn't you just have the best quality ever? And I'm like, yeah, you probably would, but you got to think about the humidity too, because at, again, 50 to 60% humidity, you're not really getting the evaporation that you want. You still want a lower humidity environment. And that, of course, observing that this year, because it was so dry, we really don't get below 50%, 40. We don't really stay at 40% humidity, below 40% humidity for that long. I mean, we definitely can get there. It's not uncommon, but it's like, how long, through the ripening process are we going to be at that humidity? And so for that reason, I just think that these figs, obviously they came out incredible this year. But that was something we learned, and I think it's really important and needs to be said so that people can understand this whole thing in a broader sense, rather than just, water your trees less, hope that they don't get rained on. It's a little bit more intricate than that, and that's pretty much what I've discovered this year. And these smaller fruits, going back to the hardy Chicagos right now, the smaller the fruit, typically the less water there can be in the fruit, right? Because if you have a big fig with a lot of moisture and a lot of water in it, like some of these here, there needs to be a lot of evaporation to occur for the fig to really concentrate in flavor, so the smaller the fruit, really, actually, it finally makes sense. I knew in the past I preferred smaller fruits, and people used to make fun of me for it because everyone's like, oh, it's so small. But, in honesty, the smaller the fruit typically here, the better it's going to taste. It's going to be more consistently of a higher quality. So there is some truth to that. I actually thought, well, it's not really the the size of the fruit. How could it? And then I was like, okay, maybe it's the shape of the fruit. It's a lot of things here. There's a lot of little intricate things. Put them all together, and that's what you get. So that was kind of the last little thing here about the tasting. Is the last fig we didn't talk about is Hativ de Argental. And we had mentioned that fig in this video here where we had this tasting here. Maybe you guys saw this. This, again, was also an insanely high-quality tasting that we did. This one was on video. It's just me, though. But the first fig that we tried was the Hativ de Argental, and I'm really regretting it because this never focused enough to get like a decent photo of it. It just, I don't know if the camera really did it justice. That fig is really, it's insane. I know people have kind of forgotten about it. I've talked about it for years, guys. It's been in this section of my spreadsheet forever. Like, I talked about it 2 years ago. Last year we did a top 20, my top 20 figs. The prior year we did my top 8 figs. And in the top 8 was Hativ de Argental. It was tied for actually third with 3 other varieties. It was tied with, let's see, it was tied with Smith, Rosalino, and Moro de Caneva. In fact, actually, I think I may even have, if you go here on the search of my blog, you can see my top 8. Right here. Here it is, actually. So December 5th of 2020, at the end of the 2020, we talked about my favorite figs. And tied for 3 through 6 was Hativ de Argental, Moro de Caneva, Rosalino. These figs are insane. You know, don't, like, I put them here for a reason, okay? Like, if it's in this top 8, you better believe it's going to be an amazing fig. So I don't understand why people forgot about it. I lost and killed my tree. I planted a number of my grafted trees in the ground. I thought I was getting real slick. I was making just making every single mistake I could to see how far I could push my limits. So I planted, like an idiot, like 8 or 9 of my grafted trees, some of my best varieties, like Verdino del Nord, Del San Juan Migran, Del's Ermitons, Rosalino, Hativ de Argental. The list goes on and on and on. And I killed them because it was just too cold, and it's just a terrible idea. Although I really wasn't protecting those trees from the winter as well as I thought I was, it's just a terrible idea to plant a grafted tree in a zone 7. You really need a zone 8 or maybe even higher to really get away with that. You need to see like a low of maybe 15 to I think feel comfortable about it. Of course, you could plant a hardy Chicago rootstock and graft onto that. But anyway, so that was the end of the tasting, basically, in that Hativ de Argental was seriously insanely good. This was a favorite of my friend Romeo, who I would argue probably has the best palate of all of us. Undoubtedly, it's insanely good, this fig. You really have to grow this. And I don't care where you live. Humid place or not, this is a good fig anywhere. It's going to taste amazing anywhere. It's got a cherry flavor, which kind of brings me now to the flavor groupings. I wanted to talk about the flavor groupings with you guys. If you have any questions, by the way, put them down in the chat here. We're going to get to them at some point at the end of this. I wanted to go through everything here. We talked about the fruit quality and the evaporation and all that. Let's see. I'm just crossing some things here off my list. We talked about cutting the figs in half. We did the fig tasting. We talked about Tiger and Holier. There's a few more varieties I'm going to talk about. The flavor profiles we're going to do. Let's see here. Okay, we talked about the hormonal imbalance a little bit. All right, so the flavor profiles here, and this kind of relates to some other varieties I want to touch on really quickly. I haven't not updated this in a long time. This is definitely something I think is a great resource. I still believe that a lot of you guys could definitely benefit from this, and it's in the description. Anyone's unfamiliar with this, go down to the description. You'll see my spreadsheet there. It'll bring you right to this. You'll see the flavor groupings here, and then figs in the flavor grouping. I think just in regards to the Hativ de Argental, we'll start with that. It's kind of the cherry flavor one, in that you can grow these particular varieties. They really do have a cherry flavor. And for my money, Hativ de Argental is really the best one in terms of the performance. I actually think Cavalier probably tastes better, maybe slightly better. I think San Baggio's up there. Rubato is like impossible to grow here. I see people grow it in this climate, and I just kind of shake my head because it has such a long hang time. It ripens so late in the season. It's kind of a waste of time, I think, personally. I mean, you do whatever you want, but Cavalieri at least is easier to grow and is like a mid-season fig. It's really not that late. The problem is it does split a little bit often. I had just actually got myself another Cavalier to replace my other trees that I ended up selling them. Moved on from the variety, reclaimed it because I'm planting this in the ground, and I want to see if by planting it in the ground, as we realized with the Daloso last year, if it'll change at all. If by some reason this fig will change the shape slightly and actually split less. And I think the answer is going to be yes, but we won't know until probably a couple years from now. So anyway, that's this whole category. It's just a special category that really is quite unique in my mind. I know there's 5 figs in here, and there's probably more, but this is a hard. If you're wanting to try a different fig, like Hativ de Argental is great. The other thing that's great in this, another category I would highly, highly recommend, is actually LSU Huye. And I know we talked about it a little bit, but let's go back actually to the tasting really quickly, because there's a photo in here, and I just sold myself a tree of this, but it's been incredible this year. I've had all of them had this red pulp to them. I think this is LSU Huye. I don't want to say 100% that it is. I believe it is, but it has an insane red pulp this year. Like, here's one actually in the tasting that we did, and this is actually, the left one here is from Romeo, his tree, and the right one here is from my tree. And the point I actually wanted to make, I told Romeo about this. I think his holier is just mislabeled, or maybe mine is just something unusual. I got mine years ago from a guy named Gary in California, Northern California. He's the greatest guy. I have no doubt that mine's accurate, but if you go to Just Fruits and Exotics, this one here matches Romeo's fig. And Romeo's fig here and the Just Fruits and Exotic, that to me just looks like Latarula or like White Marseille. That's not really, and actually Romeo's holier actually was very good. I was really impressed by that fig. Regardless, though, they're not the same fig. They're definitely not. It has nothing to do with one of them just has a better soil, one of them did this, one of them did that. It's not the case. This is just a totally different fig. Like, you can tell this is the exact way that this fig looks like when you look at a White Marseille. In fact, I have a White Marseille we can look at right here in the spreadsheet. There it is. So that's an exact match, basically, for this thing. And so my point is that I have also seen, though, in the past, other people say that their holier doesn't really get red on the inside. Mine always gets red. There was never really a year where it stayed amber. Maybe in the very, very beginning when the tree wasn't really of age. But whatever my source of LSU Huye is, it's very, very good. And it has this flavor profile that is of this fruity honey, which is quite a unique flavor profile. There's another one here that I really like called Monaco. The problem is it doesn't do well here. I'm hoping LSU Scott's Yellow is going to pan out pretty nice. There's also Pecchiola Bianca, which I'm hoping is going to pan out pretty nice. There was Albo, which I really loved Albo. It just has a larger eye, and for that reason, I had to get rid of it. Also, I killed it, so I never really reclaimed it. That was also another grafted tree. That was the only grafted tree, by the way, that survived that winter that I planted. And then Bibera Branca, I would argue, is insanely good. But that's a dry climate only fig. If you're in California, Southern California, you got the Wasp. I would definitely plant Bibera Branca. I'm going to be honest with you. That's insanely good, that fig. And so for my money, in this flavor profile, LSU Huye just tastes the best. And it's unique. It's very, very good. It's underrated. Some of the other photos, we just sold... let's see here. We just sold a tree to somebody. And let me see. I don't want to do anything here I don't want to do. Yeah, so here it is. And that some of the other photos we have. This is from the tasting. This is actually from the image of the video that we have right now in the thumbnail of the video, the live stream. Here's an LSU Huye. Look how ridiculous that looks. By the way, that in the middle there is an LSU Tiger. And then again, there's an LSU Huye. They've all been really, really good. I have seen some splitting, but that's after huge amounts of rain. And to be honest with you, it has improved leaps and bounds, just like LSU Tiger and just like Long to Doot. On the subject of Long to Doot, really quickly, I was at my buddy Dom's place in Jersey. I planted a Long to Doot for him at his place. This is a photo of his Long to Doot there. In-ground tree, survived the winter. Unbelievable how good it was. So for me, this is also really improved. I liked it in a container. I loved it in a container. I loved LSU Huye when I originally had it. I loved LSU Tiger when I originally had it. And then I had the idea, let's plant them in the ground, and the suckers just kept coming up, and I was getting inferior fruit quality that way. Here's another shot here of the fig. And look, the eye is completely closed. I already opened it up. Doesn't split. It's a nice size fruit. It's got some nice berry flavor to it. Insanely sweet. Jelly pulp. And guess what? My Long to Doot is doing the same exact thing this year as his tree. I said, Dom, how is your tree? This is, I guess, more to prove my point about the suckers that I was mentioning. I was like, Dom, how is your tree? This is the same tree as mine. The same exact copy. Obviously, I planted it for him. It's from my own tree. How is your tree outperforming mine? Well, he's got a different soil. He's got a different climate. His soil's all sand. He's also seen a drought. But the main difference, I think, from my Long to Doots in the past and this year and his Long to Doot is that it has survived the winter. Here in this Philadelphia Zone 7A climate and his climate in Zone 7A in Jersey, they both survived the winter. The fruits are not massive. On the suckers, for whatever reason, the fruits just don't behave the way that they should. They don't look right. There's just something weird about the skin, the size of the fruits, the cracking, everything is just so different. And I thought, well, here's my theory. When I ripen my Long to Doots, I hope that mine look like Dom's. And guess what? They have. They have a great size to them. They're not massive. They're still a large fig. They're insanely good. They have a closed eye, and they're not splitting. And in the past, I would have told you the complete opposite. Last year, probably 75% of them split, which is nuts. Like, I don't remember Long to Doot doing that. You talk to, actually, my friend Bill in Lancaster. He says the same thing. His Long to Doot split a lot. About 50% of the time, I think he told me. So I think there's just something to keeping your tree alive throughout the winter, not relying on these suckers to actually put out fruit, and you will be rewarded in some way, which kind of brought up the topic actually of leaf removal. When I was with Dom, I thought, well, maybe it's because the suckers have just so many leaves on them. There's so much foliage. There's so much photosynthesis that they are pumping the size of the fruits to a massive size. There's a ton of foliage on my tree right now, because not only did the main stem survive with very little damage this year, the main trunk, it's a 6-foot tall tree at this point that survived. But I also have suckers, many suckers, that are getting so much photosynthesis that are also 6 and even 7 feet tall at this point of the season from nothing. And so I don't think photosynthesis is the reason. So there's a lot of things here, a lot of things going on. It's very intricate. How do we really know? Obviously, but these are all my theories, and I think this is pretty much going forward the information I'm going with, because I really see no alternative at this point. Nothing really seems to make sense in some other direction. Alrighty, so that's Long to Doot. What are some of the other flavor profiles really quickly? Something that's not talked about a lot, and this has always been a really weird flavor profile for people. I don't think people understand this. I just talked to my friend Bill today about it. He really didn't understand it. He's been growing figs for a long time, as long as I have, and he doesn't really get it. So for me, at least, when I say the word figgy, and I think a lot of people say the word figgy, it means that it tastes like a fig, and there's an underlying fig flavor in all the figs. Well, some of them a lot less than others, because there's another flavor that usually comes in and dominates that flavor. But at its basic level, there is a fig flavor there, and it's in almost all the figs. And believe it or not, one of the figs I think is the most figgy is Little Ruby. And I also would probably put in there Osborne Prolific. Someone actually recently commented on one of the videos I did and said, Ross, why don't you talk more about Osborne Prolific, I think he said, or something like that. And he's like, it's not really talked about all that often on the internet. It's really good. And I wanted him to send me some photos of his figs. Because it is. I actually had some Osborne Prolific years ago. In 2019, I think it was, when I visited Mario in Connecticut. And that's actually from the Ag Station greenhouse there in Connecticut that Mario was working with. And I would also argue those are really quite figgy. I think this caramel flavor profile is just kind of nonsense a little bit. There are figs that have a caramel flavor profile. That's more along the lines of, though, the sugar flavor. There's a sugar flavor in every fig. Some have a sugar flavor that tastes like granulated sugar. Some figs have a sugar flavor that tastes like marshmallows. Some taste like honey. Some taste like caramel. Some taste like, some other weird, cotton candy is another one. Bubblegum. Not that some figs have a bubblegum flavor, but these are the sugar flavors you find in nature and in other fruits. And so caramel is not really a thing. They're all kind of just figgy in a way. And I wouldn't really put them here. I put them probably somewhere else. Others, like this spicier, bitter skin here, I think that's an interesting little flavor profile to make, but that's about the skin and nothing else. There are differences in these honey profiles, and I think that's very interesting. But by far, this figgy profile or this caramel, if you want to combine the two together, and maybe some of these shouldn't even be in here, some of them should be. Some of the figgiest figs I've had that tasted fantastic, and the one that I think epitomizes this whole category is a Little Ruby. It has the most intense figgy flavor I've ever had. The only thing I think that comes close is a California grown and caprified Bergen Unknown. I also think Osborne Prolific is up there probably. And I would say also kind of really figgy is Celeste. But there's a difference between also figgy and what I'm thinking of in terms of figgy, where I think there's a little bit of confusion, because Little Ruby has something called a dried fruit flavor. So not only does it just taste like a fig, but it also just has this amazing dried fruit flavor. You find this in like really well-aged red wines. You find this in, dried fruits, obviously, persimmons, dates, raisins, dried figs. So the closest fresh fig that tastes like that tastes like a date, that tastes like a raisin, that tastes like a dried fig, is Little Ruby. And for me, that's an incredible flavor profile. I don't know why people don't give it any credit. I don't know why more people aren't growing this fig. I would love to sell cuttings and share this tree with people, but the tree doesn't grow all that quickly, number one. And number two, I just like keeping that tree how it is. I don't really like pruning it, because the more you prune it, the less hardy it is, the less fruits I get next year. And this thing produces like 100, depending on the year, it's produced anywhere from like 100 to 250 fruits. And so, and they're amazing. Like, they're just dried fruit sugar bombs. Like, they are insanely good. And where's the other photo here I wanted to show you guys? In the tasting itself, they dry so easily, by the way. And we're going to get to this one little thing here. Here's actually more of them. Like every single day I go out there and harvest these little ruby figs. They're finally basically done. They started a month ago, August 9th, and they're pretty much done now. Look at the quality of these. It's just crazy. Like this is super consistent. This happens all the time. And this leads me into another thing. I want to wrap up the profiles really quickly. I think if there's anything else I want to talk about with this flavor profiles, we could go on and on. I think a little bit more about this. I'm not going to. I would like to talk about this melon berry category. But what this then leads me into, because these figs, well, crap, where was I going with this? Little Ruby, dried fruit flavor. Oh, right. So the nice thing, and the reason why Little Ruby has the edge of just getting this consistently right this often, is because of the hang time. Now, we've learned so much over the years about, and I have a video coming out soon about pretty much everything I've learned about growing figs in humid climates and really getting the best fruit quality you can. What are the characteristics, basically, of a fig that we should be looking for? You know, I know to a T at this point what is the exact characteristics. I think years ago, I don't remember what his name was. Maybe it was Ben? But I met a guy at Staten Island, the Staten Island Fig Festival. I hope to see you guys there, by the way. This was years ago, maybe like 2018, 2019. There was a guy who actually came in and flew in from Dubai that year, which is nuts. He didn't come there specifically for the gathering. He was there for business, and he decided to go to the event. But, you know, he's been watching my videos for, I guess, a while. In any case, I met a kid there, and he was asking me this question. He's like, Ross, what are the exact things that you look for when you're looking at a photo of a fig? What do you look for? And over the years, that has changed. And some of the things, and I didn't really even know at that point how to exactly quantify it. I didn't really even know, you know, how to really tell him. Like, it's like, you know, drinking a wine. Some people really struggle to describe the flavors of different things. Part of that is because they don't really have the vocabulary for it. They don't know that. They know what things taste like, but they don't know how to exactly say it. And so it's kind of like with me, I knew what like a lot of you guys might agree. You probably know what a fig, like a good fig looks like, but how do you really describe that to somebody? Now I feel like at this point of the fig journey that I'm in, that I can actually describe that to people and actually be pretty darn accurate in how the fig is really going to perform here. However, there are two things in particular that I think it's two things in particular that I will never be able to know from a photo, or at least one of which I will never be able to know from a photo, and the only ever way to figure that out is to grow it. So let's just go through the list really quickly. You don't want a fig with a big eye. Simple, right? The inside is going to be exposed to the outside. You're going to have ants crawling in the eye. You're going to have mold in the eye. You're going to have a fruit that spoils quicker. You don't want a fruit with an open eye, especially in a humid place. Then you have the shape. We've talked about the shape. We know how the eye splits. It's sensitive. The figs ripen from the bottom up. If you can protect the eye from rain, you don't have that fast absorption of water into the eye, which then causes it to split very quickly. So the shape is really important. The length of the stem is really important. Also, the shape kind of, if it's really flat, it kind of makes it easier for it to split. If the fig is more oval, pyriform, elongated, slender, it just physically is a lot more difficult for it to split. Now, the reason why all that is important, or the reason why all of that is happening, is because of the skin. So the quality of the skin, as we learned with Black Celeste like last year, you guys remember me saying Black Celeste, I've said it so many times, which we're going to talk about Celeste here in a second. I don't want to forget about that. Black Celeste and even some other Celestes that I've noticed this year, they have a skin on them that's like a rain jacket. The water doesn't absorb into the skin. Remember how I said at 50% humidity, above 50%, we actually have water absorbing into the skin. Below 50%, we have water evaporating from the skin. When it rains, obviously, it's a lot worse. And the water absorbs right into that skin. The eye is the sensitive spot, but you can have that water very easily absorb into the side of the fruit. Because if it rains, you're going to see cracking on the side. And I've seen plenty of that this year. I don't have any terrible photos to show you guys. I've been taking only good photos this year. But basically, the sides of the fruit will crack. And you'll notice that depending on the quality of the skin, when the rain sits on the fig, you can actually tell without even really observing the rain. You know where the rain had sat on the fruit for an extended period of time, because the fig cracked and opened up, and the skin like turned to crap. So cracking is bad. I know people think it's pretty. I mean, look at this Gris de Saint Jean. It's a weird fruit. There's 2 figs in one here. That's unusual. It's also extremely beautiful. I mean, the cracks are beautiful. Nitrogen also, excess of nitrogen increases cracking. But because of the quality of the skin, we see cracking more often, splitting down the side more often, and splitting at the eye more often. And so this is a thing that I will never be able to really tell from a photo unless I grow it. Now, here's an example, like something like Smith. It has the wrong shape. But guess what? It has the best quality skin. Even though it has some cracking in here, it still doesn't really matter. It's like impenetrable from the rain. Like, you know, it just shakes off that rain like it's nothing. Same thing with Moro de Caneva. Although I would argue the skin isn't as great as Smith. It's not as great as Hativ de Argental. It's not as great as Celeste. So you can observe that. I think when the figs crack a lot and the figs crack a wide amount, that's a sign you don't want that fig. If you have a fig and you notice that it really doesn't crack all that often, probably the skin is really solid and really good for humid places. So that's important to know. But having said all of this, right, we just went through that whole gambit of stuff. We talked about the eye. We talked about how the interior is exposed to the outside elements. We talked about the skin. We talked about the shape, the way it hangs, the cracking, the splitting, all that crap. Now, if you have a short hang time, none of that other stuff matters. Because here's my example. Here we're going back to Little Ruby right now. Is that Little Ruby has all the worst things going for it. In fact, the skin isn't really that great. The skin absorbs water. It has a rather open eye. In fact, there's usually ants that get in there. It can mold at the eye. I haven't seen much of that this year. It can. The fruits typically don't hang all that great either. A lot of times the eyes are pointed up towards the sky, and the rain just comes from the sky and hits the eye and then absorbs into that fruit, and it splits. Look, here's photos of the eye. The shape is wrong. Basically, every single thing that I just said about having the perfect fig in a humid climate, Little Ruby doesn't have that. So how is it that it's producing a really high quality fruit consistently? It's because of the hang time. there is a very short window, and we can sum up hang time in a different way. Let's think about it a little bit differently, because I know people are going to have questions about hang time. How many days on the tree is your particular fig and your particular variety susceptible to damage in some way, susceptible to rain, susceptible to the absorption of the skin, susceptible to splitting, susceptible to cracking, susceptible to ants, birds, critters, pests, whatever? How many days? Count the number of days, because every variety is extremely different. And this is my point. You never know what the hang time is until you grow it. And the hang time also changes pretty drastically depending on the time of the year. When it's warmer, the hang time is the shortest it could be. When it's colder later in my season for these late varieties that ripen, it's longer. So when you have a larger window of period of time that the fig has to ripen on the tree and swell, and it's a longer period of time that it's susceptible, anything can happen. And you are just at that point at the whim of Mother Nature, essentially. But if you can find a variety like Little Ruby that only has, I would argue it probably only has about a 2 or 3 day window of being susceptible. I think the hang time's about 4 days, 4 or 5 days. But there's only 2 or 3 days in that ripening process that it's susceptible. So what that means is, if it rains, let's say it's raining right now. If it rained today, what I would do is I would pick my Little Ruby figs yesterday or before the rain. They completely avoid the rain that way. Then it rains, and then all the Little Ruby figs 2 to 3 days later ripen again. And hopefully at this point, they've had a decent amount of time between one rain and the next rain event that they avoid all of the rain. So you basically are creating this scenario where the rain doesn't matter, the humidity still matters, and that's a factor. But instead of growing figs in a greenhouse under plastic, you could just choose varieties that have a short hang time. And some of the other varieties that have a short hang time, what are they? What are the figs that are least susceptible? Well, the special characteristics tab of my spreadsheet. Here we go. Short hang time. We can add in Little Ruby. We can add in Rissoulette. This is another one this year that really impressed me, which we'll talk about hopefully at some point. The one. This is a Celeste fig that my friend Bill, which is going to bring me into talking about Celeste here in a minute. So there's a number of these. There's not many of them. Another one I think is called Pelle de Boux from Pons. Here's the thing, guys, is that no one's talking about this. No one's talking about the quality of the skin. No one's talking about how it absorbs water into the skin or sheds water into the skin. No one's talking about the hang time. These are the two most important things in a humid climate of your fig. And no one's talking about them. It's just sad to me a little bit. And you can't even read about it. Because in this book, this is the Fig Bible here, guys. It's not mentioned in the Fig Bible. Why is it not mentioned in the Fig Bible? Why is the world's leading expert on figs, Montserrat Pons, not talking about two things that are absolutely critical for growing figs here? He doesn't grow them here, guys. He lives in the perfect fig climate, almost. Well, he definitely gets some rain in his summers, his fall. Condit, the prior fig expert of the world before Montserrat Pons. Do you think he grew figs in Philadelphia? I don't know. But this is my point, is that this isn't written down in the books, and the only way to figure this out was to just do it. And so now I've done it. I've figured it out. What your job is now, you're listening, you're a part of this journey. You're also a part of hopefully sharing the same ideals as I mean, not all of you guys live where I live. You know, people like James, they live in California. They're in the, they're in the perfect place. If you are in the same mission as me in this humid climate thing, please, when you review a fig, when you talk about a variety, when you see people talk about these figs that also grow them in humid places, ask them about those two things. Ask them about the skin, ask them about the hang time. And at some point, this will sink in enough and people will finally catch on. And then this will be something that people actually refer to and talk about. And maybe then I don't have to review every single fig variety in the world. Because I can't look at a photo, guys, and say, that has a short hang time. You know what I mean? I have to observe the hang time firsthand. And so this is leading me into another thing, is that I have too many figs, guys. I just keep adding more and more figs. And believe it or not, I'm very soon, I think maybe after this call ends, I'm going to buy probably roughly 10 new fig trees. I already have enough. I already have an insane amount in containers. I don't know what I'm going to do with them. But there's a good reason for this. And a lot of this, by the way, is about realizing how Little Ruby has every single thing against it. It doesn't have any of the characteristics we want, except for the hang time. How do I make judgment calls anymore? You know what I mean? I almost want to go back and grow every single fig I ever grew in the past. Like 100 some varieties that I got rid of at this point, and grow them again and evaluate the hang time and say, is the hang time short? Because maybe something, I mean, not every single variety, let's be reasonable here, but certainly some varieties I would like to just grow them again and see what the hang time is like. If it can be short enough to avoid this, avoid all this crap. And so that's my PSA in this video. That's, if you can get anything out of this video, please just listen and do all that. All right. Let's see here. Right, so that then leads me into the Celeste figs, because we've been tasting more Celestes, and people, you know, I don't know what they think anymore. These people are nuts. I don't even care what they think. But you know, every time Black Celeste is brought up on some fig community, you know, people just go nuts, and they're like, oh, it's just a Celeste, it's just this, it's just that. You know, they think they know everything, and they never even grow the fig. It's kind of insane. But I this year got to try multiple different Celestes. I'm growing like 10 different Celestes. I've grown a few in the past. And so I'm observing some pretty good differences between them. And I wanted to talk about that. One of the figs actually that I started growing, which we just mentioned a little bit here, is called the One. This is from my friend Bill. Bill's become a really good friend of mine. And this is it right here. This fig has a susceptibility window, or a hang time, of like 1.5 days. Like, it's not even 2 days. Let's just say 1 to 2 days. Which means it's even shorter than Little Ruby. And this is one of the shortest hang times I've ever seen in a fig. It's almost scary how fast it ripens. One day, it's like green and hard on the tree. The next day, it's ripe and you can pick it, and it's shriveled on the tree. I'm just like, huh? I've never seen that before in a fig. That's possible? Like, what is happening right now? Here's another, the One, I think. This is also the One. Another fig that does this actually is called Rissoulette. It's new. It's from Thierry, and really impressed with it. It tastes fantastic too, which is a huge bonus. Here it is right here. I have its own little video coming out soon. It's very, very similar though to a Black Mission fig, but I will argue that even though it is kind of like a Black Mission, in that category of the Black Missions, just like there's a category of Celeste figs that we're going to talk about, they're all not the same. And this particular one dries super quickly and ripens super quickly. It has a 2 to 3 day susceptibility period. So pretty much just like Little Ruby, it's amazing. I'm so happy I found it. I'm going to plant one in the ground. We're going to chop it up to pieces because I need to rejuvenation prune it. It's not very healthy. Got to chop it back to nothing. I'm going to try to propagate more trees of it for my own collection. Here is Black Celeste. Is someone going to tell me that this is the same? What is this fig? I don't remember what this is here. That could be a Celeste. I doubt it. But is someone going to tell me that this is the same as the fig we just looked at? I don't know where people get these ideas here. I don't understand it. This is the most amazing part about figs to me currently, is that every single fig, even though they could be very similarly genetically, or they may even share the same exact genetics, they're different because of epigenetics. And to me, that's just spectacular. So the nice thing about the one and these different Celeste figs, I'm almost, by the way, on a mission. Like, a couple of the trees I'm going to buy later today is to try to get Celeste from a couple different sources. Improved Celeste, O'Rourke. People call them whatever the heck they want to call them. People think it's an improved Celeste. People think it's O'Rourke. People think it's just regular Celeste. I don't even care. I'm trying to get as many Celeste figs as I can at this point, because this is just insane how good this fig is. People just sleep on this kind of stuff. I don't know. I keep preaching about it. I keep talking about Celeste. When everybody's going to come kind of on board, I'll be very happy with that. In any case, this one here, I find it's very figgy. It dries very quickly. In my mind, it's very good. It tastes very good. It's not the tastiest fig ever, but guess what? It's going to ripen the most consistently at a super high level, and therefore it's going to have a great flavor. The other one here that we ripened is called Stallion. Here's a Stallion we did at the tasting. Big difference, right? In pulp color. Big difference. This is a darker red, almost purple. The one over here is getting red, but it's mostly a browner color. The interior is not really super red like that, and it's certainly not almost black or purple like Black Celeste is. So the pulp color obviously is going to change the flavor. It's pretty much just across the board how that works. So you could tell they're all different figs, even just based on the pulp color, and therefore they taste different. So for me, Stallion, which I think I have a photo of it somewhere. Did I upload it in the thumbnail of this video? I think I did, but in any case, I did it here in this tasting that we did. And in this tasting, here it is. There it is. And you can see another one there. Again, it's a darker red. So for me, what I'm noticing about Stallion is that it definitely, I think, has a slightly better berry flavor, definitely more intense berry flavor than the one. I think it has a longer hang time than the one. They ripen around the same time, but the flavor is rather different. They're definitely different figs. And you can tell, though, they're definitely related. Black Celeste has an even more intense berry flavor than the one and Stallion. So, I don't think the difference in the berry flavor is that extreme, but certainly it's all very interesting to me. And at some point here, what I could even just recommend to you guys, and I think it wouldn't be a terrible idea, is if you really were serious about growing figs and wanting different varieties, just getting Black Celeste, the one, and Stallion would all be worth your time, because they're all three of them are very different, yet all very good, that you could make an argument, why wouldn't you have them? And you could also make the argument, maybe they have the same genetics, but because of epigenetics, they're different. So I think there's some value there. For me, that's what I'm going to do. I will always grow those three figs, I think, unless I find something better. Like if I find something better than Stallion that maybe has a better berry flavor, I don't know. But the point I'm trying to make is that these three Celeste figs all have Celeste probably in their parentage or somewhere in their genetics. Maybe they're exactly the same. They're all very different, yet at the same time, very good and worth having all three. So I'm doing that. Even LSU Tiger, I mean, pretty darn similar to a Celeste. So that's the spiel here, guys. That is the end of the Celeste spiel. I went on a rant. James, you're right. I'm obsessed. It is the fig trees of the Balearic Islands. We're gonna get to everybody's questions. Can everyone, if you have, you're still here at this point, please put your question down in the chat. We're gonna go through all of them, I think, at this point. I do want to mention one other thing. It's raining today. I bagged all my fruits with organza bags. And the organza bags are nice for keeping out the birds. I had a neighbor's cat that's been hanging around my fig trees, and the neighbor's cat is doing a great job at killing the birds, or at least keeping the birds away, I should say. I haven't found any dead birds, but they're hiding near my fig trees. It's great. And the birds are no longer hanging out near my figs. And then lately I haven't seen the cat. So the cat, I guess, is doing its own thing now. And the birds are back. And now I have to bag the fruits with the organza bags to keep the birds out. But the problem is with the organza bags is that they then actually make things worse when it comes to when it rains. And the moisture around the fig is still there and stays there for a longer period of time. The fruits don't dry off good enough. If there's excess moisture hanging on the skin of the fruit, again, it'll absorb into the fruit and ruin the quality of the skin. And the organza bags make it worse. It's like an outer exterior sponge that, the skin could be a sponge, but the bag itself is just making things even worse. So there's something I wanted to mention. Recently I was on YouTube looking at some things here about my channel, and it said my channel birthday had come recently. And it's amazing. We've been on a long journey. I appreciate everybody that's been along for the ride from the very first fig video that we did. It's been incredible. You can go here to the channel, hit the video section, and then sort by the oldest videos. And it's crazy to see where I've come from. And again, these are, let's see, it says 6 years ago, 2016. So that's pretty nuts. And I mean, you even just look at where I was at 6 years ago. It's just crazy. This is when I grafted Smith onto brown turkey rootstock, and it just took off. Look at that tree. Whew. I would love to have a tree like that. I never should have air layered it off of that rootstock, if you ask me. That would have been an insanely productive tree. Yeah, Morris, I don't know what your first name is, bud, but the squirrels will take them right off. They'll take the organza bag with the fig. They don't even care. Um, some of the birds, I think catbirds can be a problem with taking they'll peck through the organza bag, but some of them here in my yard haven't learned that this year. But in prior years, the catbirds can do that. They're nasty birds for sure. So anyway, it was my channel's birthday recently, and I thought it was really awesome. It's been a long journey. Who knew I would be at this point? It's amazing. I thank all you guys at this point for for sticking with me. A lot of you guys, I know some of you have been here for a long time. There is one actually thing I wanted to mention, believe it or not, we didn't cover. It's about dropping figs. We are going to be removing air layers, quite a bit of air layers soon. It's getting cooler out now, and I want to get these trees in their own pots, and I want to get them out to you guys. So we're going to have a lot of trees for sale at some point in the next couple weeks. Depends on when I have time. I'm really busy with this tax deadline. September 15th is a crazy date for me. Oh, this is an interesting fig. What is this? Kind of has the wrong shape, but it looks pretty nice. The question is it common? It's kind of flat, and I don't know if this will do well here. Anyway, if we go to my listings here, there's quite a few available for sale at this point. And so we have some good trees available here, but I think the variety of trees over the next couple weeks is going to expand quite a bit. Just if anyone's hoping for some of that, we'll have trees available. Let's see here. Yep, I think we covered pretty much everything. There's two things I wanted to talk about in addition to everything, but we could save that for another time. Yeah, man. It's my birthday, huh? Thanks, Chris. All right, let's go back to the beginning here. So we're going to cover the first questions. AMZ, what's up? Garden of Seedon, hello. I love the name. South Jersey. Mike from South Jersey, that's awesome, guys. I hope that you guys come at some point. We meet or something. You guys come to the Staten Island Festival. Maybe at some point we get to meet at some other thing. I don't know. Excels, we are indeed. Let's see, Guy, what's going on, bud? St. Augustine, is that on the East Coast or the West Coast? And Molina, I'm having difficulty keeping my rotting alive. I've planted them and gotten them in a warm room, thought out winter, but the young rooted never seem to survive in the spring. I'm not sure what you mean, bud, but I think for more information, they root and grow leaves and end up dying. So I think we're talking about fig cuttings. Planted them, gotten them in a warm room, thought are winter, but the young rooted never seem to survive to spring. How's your lights? You want to make sure you're getting the right amount of water. Here's a big tip. Measure out your soil. Water in your soil really well. Get it nice and moist. And then weigh the soil. So for every container you put the soil in, with the container, weigh it. You should have a certain amount of weight there. Mark down that weight. Then put the cutting in the soil. And then as time goes on, when the soil gets to be drier, weigh the soil. And you'll see a difference in weight based on water. And you're going to then add to make up for a lack of water, you're going to add the right amount of water to get the perfect amount of water in the soil. And you'll know what the perfect amount is based on the weight. And you can add water based on weight very easily. You just get a scale. And this will pretty much cure your rotting problems. You need to start out with good cuttings too. Preferably cuttings. If you're seeing rotting problems, preferably cuttings that were not wet to begin with. You want to make sure your cuttings have not been sitting out in a warm environment and have been wet. You want to make sure they've been in the fridge and relatively dry. You don't want them super dry, but somewhere in that. Philip said, hello from Cape Town. That's awesome, bud. I'd love to visit Cape Town someday. AMZ said we love figs over the last 3 years. We're adding Black Mission, Hardy Chicago, Brown Turkey. There's probably some better varieties, man. Especially where you live. Don't grow those. Get yourself a coldodom. Get yourself a coldodom and get yourself like spend a little bit extra money. I promise you it'll be worth it. For someone in a dry place, you got to have a coldodom. You got to have probably like Black Madeira. Something like that. And what other fig would I just say you have to grow in it? I would get De La Roca. If you can't find coldodom, get a De La Roca. You know what's easy to find and really good is a panache in a dry place. That would be like your Adriatic and Paradiso fig that you should grow. Yeah. All right, let's see here. Tony retracted his message. You know what, dude? You said some bad stuff, didn't you? Let's see. Jack retracted his message again. You guys are just saying nasty stuff, aren't you? All right. Jack said, my second question, what would be your top 5 list this year? Thanks. Well, if you're only talking about this year, it's got to be Smith number 1. And then Hativ number 2. I haven't had all of my figs yet. And I haven't had some of my favorites yet this year. We're going to finally get some Verdino del Norte again. So we'll get to talk about that fig later in this year. We're getting some Verdolino like now, and that fig's nuts. That fig's incredibly good. We'll talk about Verdolino at some point. Let's see, after Hativ de Argental, and those are the 2 clear best ones. And then I would say probably, maybe in no particular order, Tiger, Moro de Caneva, Azores Dark. Campaneri. Forgot about Campaneri. It's been insane this year, that Campaneri fig. Little Ruby, although I'm getting more out of my top 5, but some other really good ones are like Gris de Saint Jean, Rissoulette, all the Celeste figs I've had. Ronde Bordeaux has been nuts. LSU Huye, and even Teramo, and this fig Floria, which no one cares about, no one talks about. This is Feather River, which I really was impressed with. This one here. Cora Black I really liked. It's an interesting honey profile fig. I'll just go over some of these quickly. Texas BA1, very similar to Smith. Very, very good. This, I think, is Norella. All the Hardy Chicagos are always good. This is Azaloto. I wanted to talk about this fig. It's very good. Castle Tricino, amazing fig. This has got some incredible flavor profile to it. We'll be talking more about that fig in the future, I know, in the end of year review that we do. Pecchiolo is pretty good. Boscarosa has a more acidic flavor, I've learned. Is interested to learn that one. Longer hang time, unfortunately. This is a Columbaro Nero that I found at the Jersey Shore. It was really good, really well ripened. There's a lot of trees down at the Jersey Shore, and I found all the very common figs. I pretty much found every single one of them down there. Jack said, I think Bass's favorite was my best this year. It's funny that it's thought to be similar or the same as Calderona. Both Bass and Pond say it's possibly the best fig. Maybe we should listen. Well, Calderona is one of the best figs. I got it right here. It's incredible. I can't wait for mine to ripen. It is better than Black Madeira. I don't know about flavor-wise, but I really love it. And I planted it into a larger pot this year for that reason. It doesn't split as often. It's got a better shape. And the way that the fig hangs is better than Black Madeira. Mark says he loves my channel. Thank you, Mark. Chris, what's going on, bud? Azora's still my favorite. Chris had like the amazing Azores Dark fig that it's pretty hard to get one like that, but when you get a fig like that, they're insane. Actually, last year I had a couple like that. There's a video, Chris, if you're interested. I had some Azores Dark figs at the end of the year that just came out nuts. I think, yeah, this is the video right here. There's this one and this one here. Yeah, there's two videos. I talked about in this video how I think some people just may not have Azores Dark. I know there's that thought that they're the same as Seo Miguel Roxo, and it should be the same, but mistakes happen, and we don't really know. I've never really grown Seo Miguel Roxo. I need to get that tree. I keep saying I'm going to get it, and I don't get it. But I don't know. I've heard inconsistent reports with about Seo Miguel Roxo and Azores Dark. I think this is the one here that came out incredible. All I know is I had a lot of them in the fall, Chris, that just came out amazing. Yeah, this is it right here. Look at how nuts that is. One of them is a Campaneri. Ooh. Amazing. Anyway, people, I don't know. Maybe people will wake up at some point. I think some people are just in the camp that all the Hardy Chicagos are the same and they may never change. Let's see here. Passionate Fruit said, I've heard people struggle to grow Ronde Bordeaux in the southeast with fruit being dry and unflavorful. Have you heard of this issue? Yeah, I think it's nonsense. The Southwest, yeah, I think that's nonsense as well. Apparently they like more water and more humid weather than the hot, dry, intense sun. Yeah, that's not a thing. See that doesn't make any sense. That's totally contradicting everything I know about growing figs here. So those people are wrong. I know that flavor and all that is objective, and I'm not growing figs in that climate, but a lot of those couple people that I remember posting about that years ago on our figs, I don't know if they really gave the fig enough of a chance. I would be shocked if a fig, especially for the reasons that they mentioned, dry and unflavorful, that doesn't make any sense. That to me seems like a lack of water. It's just so dry. there where they're at. I know there was a grower in Arizona that was complaining about that. And it's just a water issue. I mean, you can have the same thing here. Sometimes if you don't water your trees enough in containers, I've noticed this all the time, they just aren't good. I have a lot of trees this year, and this is another thing I forgot to talk about, was the sunburn. A lot of the trees that got sunburned from the greenhouse head start I gave them, the fruit quality is pathetic compared to what it should be. And so the same thing can happen. If the soil's too dry for a long period of time, it can make the fruit quality actually bad, because at some point you're damaging the tree in a way. You got to keep the tree happy and healthy. And if you do that, Ronde Bordeaux is a great variety, I promise you. James said, do you know that where a man could get his hand on a Regato del Salento? I'm actually 2 Ramadas away. I discovered from completing my Ramada collection. I also need a Parajal Ramada. You know, I would love to grow Parajal Ramada where you live, James. I think Regato del Salento is probably maybe worth trialing here, but a lot of these honey figs, and you know that's what Regato del Salento is. It's a Ramada of Dotado. A lot of these Dotado types, they don't do well here, and I'm pretty down on them in general. I would rather grow something like this holier fig here, like this fig that's not really holier. It's like Latarula, White Marseille. I'd rather grow Barb Malone. I'd rather grow Zafiro. You know, I'm not really sold, unfortunately, on some of these trees, like Regato del Salento. It's supposed to have an interesting berry flavor, so that could be like a nice competing fig against LSU Huye. But I just would be really shocked if Regato del Salento performed better, which we need to try. We will try it at some point. I will try it, but I don't think it's going to beat out LSU Huye. I'm going to be honest. I don't think you need to worry about James completing your Ramada collection, because there's always going to be a new Ramada too. These figs constantly, they keep mutating, and they keep having them, I think they're called chimera mutations or something. They'll keep cropping up, you know, and I don't know. The pretty figs are not always the best tasting. Let's just put it like that. You say that you prefer the Coldinam soft density. Yeah, I mean, it is an amazing fig. The Coldinams are just insane. Susie, what's going on, Susie? Thank you for sharing your knowledge. You're welcome. Thank you for watching all the videos. And I've seen your name around somewhere, so you're being active. Thank you. Chris said, I came in late. Are we saying don't prune so severe, avoid pruning as much as possible? Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I've said that this year, Chris, is a big topic, actually. Ross Ratty pruning. Is it pruning that's going to come up? I don't think it's pruning here. No, I don't think that's it. There was a video at some point here, Chris, where I came around and I talked about my little ruby and all the different buds on the trees. There's the apical buds, the lateral buds, the buds further down the lateral buds, and then there's the suckers that come up. And depending on what buds that you keep intact, whether it's from pruning, whether it's from the winter damage from the cold, if you can keep those apical buds and lateral buds intact, you will get more fruit. You will get earlier fruit. You will get a higher quality fruit. I promise you. I know people do the total opposite. They love to prune their trees. They do this rejuvenation pruning method in a way, or a coppicing method in a way. pollarding, whatever you want to call it. And that can work, but you need a lot of light to do that. So it's a little bit more difficult. It's not always the answer for every situation. And in general, I would argue that's not terrible, but it is worse than keeping the apical buds and laterals intact. The absolute worst thing you would do is cut the whole tree back and hope that you get fruit from the suckers. Now, if you cut the whole tree back, that's a really good form of rejuvenation pruning, and sometimes that's necessary. I'm going to do that to a couple of my trees at the end of the season. My something negra, I forget the name of it. It's a black mission type, something negra. Crap. And then another one, rissoulette. They're just not healthy trees, and they need to be cut back so they can get the suckers that come up and be healthy. Someone said try Che. I've been trying Che for like ever. So I got a Norris. It hasn't fruited. Waiting very patiently. It's not going to fruit this year, I don't think. I am surprised that you're recommending it because I don't really even know people who even like Che. So do you like Che? James said, which one has the best flavored skin? I think Zafiro has a pretty good tasting skin. Tastes like coconut. Joan. How's it going, Joan? I'm sorry I haven't been answering some of your emails. It's just so long sometimes, and I don't have a lot of time to answer many, many questions. So, Joan, if you have questions, don't be afraid to ask, but like one question at a time or something. I'm happy to see that you have been so into all of this. It's great. What opinion, in your opinion, makes a fig a hardy Chicago? It's just the overall fig itself. There's a leaf pattern, obviously, that's very similar, but I've seen figs with the same leaf pattern as a hardy Chicago that actually are very different than hardy Chicago. There's a fig I got, I think it's called Unknown Spain. There's a Columbaro Nero. They have very similar leaf patterns to hardy Chicago, but what you're looking for is a fig that just, how do I describe this? Joan, you'll eventually get an eye for this kind of thing. They all relatively look the same. And you'll see this red pulp. You'll see the pattern of the pulp. You'll see that it has a closed eye. It's typically more of a pyriform shape. Some of them have longer necks. Some of them have longer stems. Some of them are smaller. Some of them are bigger. They all taste relatively the same. That's probably the best way to know. I mean, you visually look at it. You could tell by looking at it, and I've, by the way, identified so many of them here in my spreadsheet, which people really got on me about years ago. Look how many there is here, and there's so many more that I have not added to this list, but that's at least 75 right there, about 70 of them. And some of these may not even be hardy Chicagos. There's one in particular that I'm thinking of that I think it may even be a... No, all these definitely are hardy Chicagos. I think it's called Slidell. Okay, I don't even have it on this list, so there you go. Yeah. These are all hardy Chicagos. I don't know what this fig is. Maybe heard of it once. There's so many of them. And you know what? If you just, here's what you should do, Joan. Go to this list and look at every, do an image search for every single fig on here. You'll see they look exactly the same. Pretty much. Now, in their super ripe state, they're not going to look very similar because they're just super ripe, and it's hard to determine that. But when you have them under ripe, you'll see. My friend Mountain Figs, friend Tony, He can tell you a lot about this, so you may want to read his blog post on it. Does he have it under Mount Etna? Here it is. Read this. Pretty good information. I don't agree with all of it, but Tony's, he's a great guy. He knows a lot about this stuff. Alrighty. Who is next? Who's the next victim here? Can't wait to try the sucker system next year. Yeah, me too. Mario in Connecticut was really the one to kind of invent that. Mario in Connecticut, he's the guy that did the 3 suckers would come up. He would overwinter them and bury them in his greenhouse with the concrete and cover them. It was beautiful. It was such an amazing thing he did. And then the next season, they would plop back up, and then he would grow out 3 new suckers, and he would just keep recycling it. So he would let the 3 from last year fruit and grow and do their thing, and then 3 new ones would come up, and then he would cut out the old ones and bend over the new ones. It's just a great way to grow figs in a very close spacing. The other alternative is to do a Japanese espalier, and that's kind of what I've been telling people to do, because I've been doing the wrong thing to figure all this crap out. James said, I think I asked you the question once. You could build a simple hoop house greenhouse that's just got plastic above and air on the sides, middle option. Is this for you or for me? James, I don't know. Yeah, you could build a big hoop house. You're talking about like a high tunnel? You could build a high tunnel and just have the sides up. It's going to be real hot. You'll keep the rain out. Humidity might be a problem. I have to figure that out. I can't wait to try that at some point. Joe, what's going on, bud? Glad to see you here. Attack Titan said he never grew them, just heard they're cool. James said, I've got a Ross, what kind of tropical fruits, if you could, would you grow? It was a dream of mine. Oh, man. A really, really good pomegranate. Parfianca, or there's one of them I have in my spreadsheet. I don't remember the name of it. Pomegranates, persimmons, and figs are my favorite fruits. I do like the mamey sapote. You dry them, and they come out great. Here it is right here. This is the name of it. This is a good pomegranate. If I lived where you lived, I would plant that in the ground as soon as humanly possible. In terms of tropical fruits, man, what is coming to my mind here? I would grow loquats, though it's not very tropical. They ripen in the off season. I'd grow all this citrus that ripens in the off season, or at least in the winter when there isn't a ton. What is that service that tropical Miami Fruit? We're giving them a little plug here, but you know what? When are these guys gonna wise up and just send me a box? I'll never know. I don't think you can grow durian in a greenhouse, but never tried it. Probably should try it. Oh, you know what? I would grow some of these anonas, man. Probably would get myself an avocado, bananas. Bananas are insane. I went to my friend Raphael's place in Miami. He's growing all kinds of tropical fruits there. And there was a banana I tried. Which one was my favorite? Oh, it's the praying hands banana. That banana's nuts. It's so good. People like, what is that tropical fruit that the fruit grow? Jaboticaba. You just grow grapes, guys. You just grow grapes. I don't get the Jaboticaba craze. Just grow some muscadine grapes and call it a day. I hear black sapote is not that great. I've heard mixed things. Uh, I had the blue Java banana. It wasn't as good. Oh, mangoes, dude. Why would you not grow mangoes? Come on. What do Cherimoya, Adamoya, dragon fruit. Oh my god, I forgot about dragon fruit. I'm so stupid. Bananas, dragon fruit, and mangoes, and you just call it a day with that, dude. Okay, there we go. Hativ de Argental versus Figoin in terms of what? Flavor, performance. Figoin is very sweet, amazing berry flavor. It would be really difficult for me to choose. I have to put them side by side. It's just been so long since I've had some Verdino del Nord. I'm going to be honest with you. Which one do I prefer taste-wise? Why don't you just grow them both? Where are we at here? Oh, man. Okay, we got to catch up here. You guys are way ahead of me. Sorry, everybody. Diana, don't be nervous. You're in a great place to be growing figs, trust me. If you're in a zone 7B, you got almost no worries for the most part. Um, 7A and a 6B, you're kind of screwed. Anywhere else that's colder, you're just going to have to protect them. But in a 7B, you might be able to get away with a lot of figs, and they can get massive. And that's kind of what the microclimates are like in these cities. New York City, Philadelphia. There are fig trees everywhere there, Diana. I swear to you. James, I think the best time to put them out if you're going to as early as possible. If you want to late long, maybe the top will die and the roots will be established. Tina says, could you please describe how to tell a sucker from a regular stem? Yeah. So the sucker, you could honestly, the term sucker could be used in many different ways, I guess, and that's kind of why this is a bit confusing. But the sucker is going to come from the soil. It's going to be very vigorous. It's going to grow very quickly. It's going to be very healthy. And you want suckers sometimes. Like, suckers are a good thing. But in terms of fruit, it's not a good thing. So something that's coming from the soil, from very low down, if it's coming from a branch that already exists, it's not really a sucker. Now, you could get a little bit more technical, and there is probably a situation somewhere in there. Let's see. Hariz, I'm sorry, bud, if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. This year, only Verdolino fruits survived the massive rainstorm of August. None split or cracked, just some fermentation. It is one of the best varieties, and that's why. You just said it right there. It also tastes amazing. It's like last year instantly became one of my best figs. Kimberly said, I think my LSU Purple has good skin for zone 7. It does. It's a great choice. I would need to plant one in the ground here. I'm trying to get myself an established tree in a container and then get to plant it. I'm glad you got yourself a little ruby. Thanks for talking about the book there. Morris said, yeah, we talked about that. We talked about the Ronde Bordeaux. How did we get down here? What am I going back? Kimberly said, when will I have cuttings? It's always at the end of November and probably towards December. I'm going, Thanksgiving time is going to be really busy for me. So I don't know where that's all going to happen, but Thanksgiving is a very crazy time this year. And so we may have an issue with that. I don't know exactly, but you can definitely count on early December. Darren said, do you feel any recency bias when you taste cultivars? Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's so hard to remember what all of them taste like. But I'll tell you, the performance of them, isn't about recency bias. It's really about the flavor. There's definitely some there. I would be lying if I said that there wasn't. But one day, who knows? One day I can have some of these really nice varieties side by side. At the end of this year, Jeffrey, I'm going to try and objectively rank them all by flavor. At least the ones, probably I'm going to rank about 50 figs or something by flavor. Try my best. It's not going to be accurate, but it's going to be the best I think it can be. Michael says, hi from Vancouver. What's going on, Michael? A lot more people should be growing figs in Vancouver. It's kind of tough to grow figs there, but Jeffrey, you've been watching since 2018. That's awesome, man. Morris said, you ever get a crop of love? I would have liked to have grown love longer, and I just had to give up. I don't know why. I should have just stuck with it. I think I took it out to plant one of those grafted trees I had, and then the grafted tree died. I'm glad you didn't pay top dollar for it. You know, I've asked some people that should know more about it, and they never gave me a straight answer. I just think the fig could perform well here. I don't know. It may just need some serious time to be in the ground and stuff. Septric said, I'm in New York. When can I prune my fig tree? Prune it if you're in New York City. Prune it in like March and April. If you're in like New York State somewhere outside of a city, prune it in like before prune it around Christmas time. If it's gonna get really cold and you're in like a mountainous area of New York, you're in like the Finger Lakes area, it's gonna be a lot earlier than Christmas, but sometime when the tree goes dormant, and then you can protect it. But typically you don't want to be pruning. Passionate Fruit said, I'm in coastal NorCal where the whole summer is dry, but we get less heat and have a shorter season, and some figs don't ripen. What short and mid-season figs would be best for a dry climate? All of the short mid-season figs. That's the thing. You're in a dry climate. You got it made. Just grow the ones that taste the best that also ripen early and mid-season. And I know that's difficult, but I would say Smith and Hativ de Argental are some of your best bets. Rosalino is incredible. Vagabond tastes amazing. Verdino del Nord tastes amazing. Zafiro. Pisaludo is a great choice. Green Michurinska, assuming it does ripen as early as I think it does. Verdolino. Zor's Dark. You know, the in terms of like super early figs, I just don't know. Oh, you grow Pastilliere. Oh man, yeah, grow Pastilliere. Daloso. Oh, I would grow La Bourgeoisie as well. That seems like more of a mid-season fig. Tastes great. But it needs a dry climate. Ponte Trace is another one. That's some pretty good choices right there. I lost my spot, I think. There we go. Coastal NorCal. Frank says I'm in Georgetown, South Carolina, from the Midwest. I bought a nice Celeste fig, dug a hole and planted it. The tree, I dug a bucket. We're able to save the tree and plant it in a bucket. I'm not sure what you're saying, Frank. I just bought a fig nominal dwarf from the nursery, planted in a 5-gallon bucket. I just like the way it looked, and it has little figs on the tree. I hope it makes it. Yeah, I hope so too, bud. Jeffrey said, what do you think about it calls Native American tiger fig for South Florida weather? What's the Native American tiger fig? Is that a real thing? The actual tiger fig, the panache, is not good for South Florida. Forget about it. If I was growing figs in South Florida, the main concern is hang time. You also want to time your crop. You got to be really careful about pinching and when you're going to actually ripen these figs. If you just in South Florida have figs like Little Ruby and that have a short hang time, you're going to succeed because you're going to avoid some of that rain. And you got to plant in a berm, plant in a mound. Don't plant a fig unless it's at least 2 foot above grade. Jeffrey said it's humid in South Florida. Yep. Rose said, hey, Ross, I have heard good things about crozes. Eric said it's his favorite Mount Etna type. Is it? He said that Azores Dark was his favorite Mount Etna. Did he change his mind? I'll have to ask him about that. I haven't tried crozes yet. Looked like a Hardy Chicago, so I just said forget about it. But if there's one that is supposed to be tastier than Azores Dark, I'm going to try it. Anything to say on alpine strawberries? I sowed 12 varieties. Yeah, I just started some seeds, and I have a couple coming up. I'm going to transplant mine, I think, because I'm going to put down a lot of mulch this year where the figs are, and I have a number of them underneath the figs. So I'm going to transplant them over to my Mar de Bois strawberry bed and put the Mar de Bois strawberries somewhere else, I think. I'm having a weird year with the strawberries. I'm surprising that any alpine strawberry tasted bad. It just sounds surprising to me. They're tough to germinate and sow. Jason, what's going on? What's going on, bud? What inspired me to start this channel? I wanted to document all of the stuff I was doing. I thought it was a cool idea that when you start something as crazy as this, well, at least it was just something new to me. And I wanted to see how everything was in the beginning to then be able to compare it later on. Like when I watched that video, it's amazing how far at this point I've come, you know? That was the main motivation. I wanted to share that whole experience, but also I like just sharing things that are good with other people. So eventually I realized how amazing this whole hobby is and all the fruit it is that I grow. And I wanted other people to do the same thing. So it just got kind of further from that. I just love giving somebody a piece of fruit that just makes them like, you know, their face just lights up. Michael says, do you grow any brown turkey types and have recommendations? There is a brown turkey I think I'm going to try. It's a southern brown turkey. But I really have not had any good luck here. It's just too humid for these brown turkey types. And they don't do well. The skin is not good. The shape's not good. The eye's not good. I'm sure there is maybe one source of it that might be worth it here, but I'm going to try the southern brown turkey, which I did actually eat before, and that was a pretty good fig. Had that one actually in the experimental station up in Connecticut with Osborne Prolific. Passionate, have you tried growing mooshu fruit yet? They have small berries that are said to taste like sweet ground cherries, but maybe less funk. I finally found some seeds. What is mooshu fruit? This is a real thing, huh? Weird Fruit Explorer found it, or reviewed it, huh? Did he say it was good? You know, I don't really like these types of fruits. They're like, Isn't this the family that is related to tomatoes? Yeah, it's related to ground cherries. I don't like these weird Solanaceae berries. There's so many of them, especially on like, Baker Creek's website. I don't like them. Rose asked me, how did Tolosa perform this year? Oh my God, Rose. I was so upset because I had a couple fruits that looked like they were going to ripen at reasonable time, and they fell off this year with the drought. The tree is now growing super well, and at least one of my 2 in-ground trees, and then now one of them I have an air layer going. I'll detach it, put it in a container. So next year, I'm hoping that maybe we'll get something substantial. Yeah, I have really, really high hopes for that fig. Cody said, which tree would you Japanese espalier? Any variety in particular? I mean, whatever you want to espalier. Like, the nice thing about the espalier is that they're really good at getting the light that they need. So if you have, a variety maybe that needs more light, maybe that could be a good choice, because you are very good at that point when you have an espalier. The form is set; it sets it up perfectly to get the right amount of light. It maximizes light. James says he tried loquats and killed them. That sucks, man. What do the red cells mean in your spreadsheet? It means I got rid of it or it's dead. Ronnie said, do you still think you're growing dragon fruit? Yeah, of course. There is that yellow dragon fruit you get at the store and stuff now. That stuff's amazing. I don't digest it well. But it's so tasty, that fruit. James said, I've always wanted to grow white sapote. I've also tried that once, but it died in the cold. I don't know. I'm not really that excited about sapotes. I don't know. There's just nothing that interesting about them to me. Don't sapote trees get gigantic? Some of them do, I think. It depends. Ronnie said, you ever found a productive variety grafted to a problematic one, like Colonel Lippmann's Black Cross will get better fruit set from the problematic one? What? I don't know if that's how that works, man. Typically, the unproductive varieties just require more light to set the fruit buds, like Colonel Lippmann's Black Cross. And so as a rootstock, it doesn't really matter because it's not setting any fruit as a rootstock. But if you grafted Colonel Lippmann's Black Cross onto something else, that something else, like maybe it's like a very easy variety to fruit, it shouldn't really matter. I mean, I don't know. There's probably more information that needs to be learned about that. But Colonel Lippmann's Black Cross, no matter how you slice it, is going to be difficult to get fruit set. Joan says, I'm so thankful that you devote so much time to these discussions so that we can learn from your experience and knowledge. Thank you, Joan. Odom, what's going on, bud? Watching for a few years, up to 11 varieties in ground, 7A Tennessee. My wife said you started my fig addiction, and I say thank you. You're welcome, bud. You know what? I was just telling my my girlfriend about your comment the other day, because it's funny that you now are into all this huge collection and stuff, and your wife's I think you said your wife is shaking her head or something. Jeffrey said, hey Ross, my wife Tanya says says hi. She likes your channel too. Calls you the young man Ross that loves to grow fig trees. What's up, Tanya? Darren said, hey, from Hawaii. That's awesome. We don't get many people from Hawaii anymore. There was a couple people from Hawaii years ago. Rose said, I was very surprised that the fig wasps have been recently found in several places in Germany. If it survives in Germany, it'll also probably survive at your place. Yeah, Rose, it does survive. There was a scientific study done in Hungary that said that the fig wasp can survive, I think it was 11 or 12 degrees Fahrenheit. So if the temperature in your yard stays above 11 or 12 degrees Fahrenheit, there's no reason why you can't colonize the fig wasp, in my opinion. It may be a bit of a struggle and challenge, but I have the Bogomolovo fig. It's a male fig that is very, very hardy. And with that capra fig, you should be able to do it. I can't wait until somebody actually does it. Yeah, Nexo and English brown turkeys, man, I'm not a big fan of. I know Big Bill has this brown turkey obsession with like Femarn and one other one that he has. I just don't see the appeal. They don't do well here. I would love to go to his yard again, check out his English brown turkey trees, especially when they're like now when they're fruiting, and see what the deal is. Especially right now because it's raining. But I don't know. I would rather try Celeste type figs or something. Like if I'm going to devote my time to a certain category or type of fig, I'm going to stick with Hardy Chicagos and Celestes and whatever else that has these types. Really, those are the main types, believe it or not, that I focus on. All these other figs, they don't have a type. I guess the Adriatic types are interesting. I've dedicated a good amount of time to those. The Col de Dames, but I don't think you can call that a type. Let's see. Freestroke said, hey, Ross, I'm in South Jersey. Will Noir de Barbentane make it through my winter? You know what? It's supposed to be rather hardy. There's a guy 20 minutes from me across the Delaware that his tree survives. I have not had any luck, and I think it's because of the really wet soil that I have. In South Jersey, you may not have that wet soil. If your tree is still growing at this point, probably isn't going to survive the winter. If your tree has stopped growing and it's hardening up its branches, pretty good chance. If it's young, might as well just protect it the first year or two. You know what I mean? Like, put in a little bit extra effort. It'll get itself going. South Jersey's warmer than where I'm at, typically. And with your sandy soil, you typically have hardier trees. There's less water in the soil. Also, if you're by the coast, you're even better. If you're more inland, you're still probably better than where I'm at, but it's a good question. I just don't know the answer exactly. Passionate Fruit said, yellow dragon fruit's sweet, has no flavor aside from sugar. Yeah, you're right. It isn't this most complexity to it, but it's very sweet and very good. Some of them have berry flavors, huh? Moore said, I know you love figs, but your fruit tree videos inspired me to grow stone fruit, 20-gallon containers in my balcony. Wow, that's awesome, man. It'd be nice if you can grow them in the ground, but if you're getting some good success in your balcony, that's awesome. Sapote, particularly white, are awesome, seeming to me like it's all custard cup on a tree. Don't worry, none of our stomachs can handle yellow dragons. That's part of their charm. Dan said, is Norella the largest hardy Chicago fruit? You know what? I don't know, but it definitely seems like it is the largest I've grown. It's super large. And you know what? It even has just like a really everything about it is just great in general. It's just like an overall fantastic choice for a hardy Chicago. Michael says that Brandon Street Unknown, Nebo, and Termo, yeah, they are. I don't know where you found that information out, but I've been saying that for a while. There's another one that my friend Chris named called Brown Sugar Crunch that's supposed to be the same as those two. Ronnie says I grow a bunch of dragon fruit in the Atlanta area. Stay away from the yellows. Whoa. Okay, I'll remember this, guys. Morris said, now that I have 20 varieties of all types of fruit trees. What the? That's awesome, man. Wait, you're growing fruit trees on a balcony in containers, but now you have 20 varieties of all types of fruit trees. Is this all on a balcony, man? Oh, dude, TJ, you're way behind, man. Friend Dave is calling me. I have to call him back. Let's see here. We're getting to the end here, guys. San Baguio, how was it this year? I didn't really get any yet, and I'm not going to get many. Next year, we'll have a lot more information because of the method of winter protection that we're going to have. Hariz said, I forgot, is there a possibility that Verdino del Nord, Figolino, and Beretti fig from Rose is the same or different? Well, Figolino is the same as Verdolino, or as Verdino del Nord, excuse me. I don't know about a Beretti. I don't know what Beretti is, man. Is that a synonym of Figolino? Oh, I'll have to do some. Oh, is this Gabriel from Italy? Gabriel. Mushu's a nightshade, yeah. So it's not one of the Solanium berries. Okay. Oh, he likes it, huh? All right, maybe I will try Mushu. I don't know. Any news comparing Verdolino and Salame? Not yet. I got a Salame that ripened, and the birds found it before I did. So I bagged all the fruits now. I think we're going to have a problem, though. Castellan from Thierry is promising, huh? Let's see if that's on my list. Is that a new one? It's not on my list. Did it just come out? You know, TJ, there is an Algerian Chatui that looks just like Smith, but it's not supposed to be Smith. It's supposed to be Cendrosa. That fig Cendrosa is supposed to be the same as Algerian Chatui. And so there's an Algerian Chatui that's in the communities that's not labeled correctly. It's Smith. That guy, Submarine Pete, has one that he reviewed on his channel. Fig Life with Pete, or whatever it is. His Algerian Chatui is just Smith. And he says, yeah, that he got his from Bass. And so there must be a mix-up somewhere. I asked Bass, actually. I followed up with that. And I asked Bass, and he said that Algerian Chatui is the same as Cendrosa. But I grew Cendrosa, and it's nothing like Smith. And it's extremely late. And I think Chatui, in whatever language that is, in Algerian, it means winter. So how does a fig name winter? How is that Smith? It doesn't make any sense. There's something wrong, 100%. I don't care what anybody says. Fight me. James says, yeah, it's too cold where I live in Northern California for dragon fruits. Then you're going to get a greenhouse, man. Ronnie said, I'm a bit disappointed by Campanieri. It seems to have a more refreshing melon taste. Yeah, it does. It does get better, Ronnie. You don't have to worry about it. The first few on all the trees, just, they're not that great. Especially when you kind of overwater it in the beginning. It doesn't really have the most intense berry flavor, but I told you it was actually my favorite fig of this tasting that we did. Here it is. So this tasting that we did locally, it was insanely good. I don't know, you should take my word for it. Where is the photo? Huh. I think I had problems finding this photo earlier in the video, actually. Yeah, it's right here. Telling you, it's amazing. but that was from like an in-ground tree that has been there for like 3 years, and the soil's super dry. It's definitely one of the better tasting figs, but it's not like, you know, the most amazing fig you're ever gonna eat. Like uh, the other figs you mentioned. What was the other one? All right, let's look at Castillon because oh really? So the source said it's different from Verdino del Nord, huh? You know, oh yeah, this fig's really flat. Oh, hmm. Yeah, it dries well, huh? It's very early. Some of them are very flat, and that's not good. But it's very early. Yeah, I think my observation on this one years ago when I was looking at this is that oh, it says hardy and precocious, apparently unifera. Interesting. See this right here in the dried figs? There is some splitting at the eye. At least right here. That may have freaked me out a little bit. Has anyone even have this in the United States? Like, is there any photos of it like recently? Could be interesting for sure. You know, looks promising. Cold, hardy, and early ripening. Yeah, I mean, I'd be willing to try it if it's gonna ripen this early. The splitting is not that bad, but there was a fig that he used to have called Figu Jean, and I have to find it here. Not sure if it's easily findable on his website. Oh man, that's not gonna work. Yeah, there it is. He's got photos, I think, somewhere on Facebook of this one, and this looked like a really nice fig. It ripens very early, but the problem is it splits all the time, and that was just enough for me. It reminds me a lot of like, you know, if it ripens early, that's nice, but if it's like, you know, the trace is spliced and it has a tendency to split, there's too many problems, and it's kind of worth, you know. But that one does seem like it has more things going for it than Figu Jean for sure. Josh says, "Thanks for all the information. Is always watching your videos. New to the fig world, up to 19 varieties. That's awesome, man. Yeah, you're new, but you have 19 varieties. That's that's hilarious. I did the same thing. Uh, I hope you keep going, man. Okay, let's see here. I think that we're gonna end it there, guys. Appreciate everybody watching. Gabriel, you said that comparing the fruit size and Brava tendency, but who knows? Yeah, I mean, the photos I've seen of Figolino looks exactly the same. I'd be surprised if it's not. 10 grams dark green pulp, same as Verdolino. These the same fig. You should send me photos of Beretti, man. I'm convinced that Figolino is the same, but maybe they're different enough. Like maybe there's epigenetic differences, like we talked about in this video. All the different Celeste types, the different Hardy Chicago types. Maybe I wouldn't doubt it. Maybe there is a difference between for Dino del Nord and Figolino? Probably. Jeffrey, you take care, man, and tell your wife I said hello. Tanya, I think her name was. Unknown said, do you have to water potted figs brought indoors for the winter? Yeah, I mean, if they're going to be dormant, I don't really water them. You just mulch them well and just keep the water to a minimum. You can definitely overwater a dormant fig tree in a container and kill it. So don't do that. All right, guys. Again, thanks for watching. We'll see you soon. Hit that subscribe button, guys. If you haven't already, check out the blog, figboss.com. Go down to the bottom. Put your email in here, guys. It would definitely help me out. You'll get notified every time we make a new blog post. And then also, if you're interested in any of these fig trees, they're available. And then we also probably going to have a few more coming out in the next couple weeks when I start removing some of these air layers. So, all right, guys, take care.